Welcome to another episode of Test, Optimize, and Scale. I've been looking forward to today's discussion with Jason Kraus, founder, CEO of Prepare for VC out of Boston, going to be speaking to us about startup recommendations, culture, some of the recent cohorts that he's working with, and can be more excited to talk with you, Jason. Thanks for taking the time to hop on the pod.
Thanks for having me on, and excited for our conversation.
Awesome. I always like to familiarize listeners with guest stories. So thought we could start with your background leading into the creation of Prepare for VC.
Absolutely. So my background's coming from both the startup side and the investor side that led to Prepare for VC, which now helps startup companies get ready for their fundraising rounds, and both with individual consulting support and cohort-based accelerator programs. So on the startup side, my first attempt at a startup was in college. Created an app called Night Owl, which was supposed to help. It was designed to help people figure out what was going on around college campuses at night. Went to school in upstate New York at Colgate, and got pretty cold in the winters. So the idea was you'd be able to look at an app and see, is it worth making the trek downtown tonight to the local bars, senior year, or should we go to something that's going on at a house or a frat, or what was going on around campus. And it was a great experience. Hadn't really learned yet that was an MVP version of the platform I created, and what the whole process of user testing and kind of how to go about really marketing and scaling the application. But that got me excited about the whole startup space overall. And ended up I was interested in kind of the finance track before. That got me, when I was looking at grad school, I was interested in more of the entrepreneurial side, and went to Babson for grad school right after, which has a huge entrepreneurship program. And, got to intern with an angel investment group that hosted their meetings at Babson called Boston Harbor Angels, and really found that the angel group space really kind of connected the two interests of the finance background, the entrepreneurship. And I got to meet, founders that were putting together, or, they were at the early stages with some traction, and got to see how they presented their companies, and also got to see, my role was kind of taking notes on all the meetings, what investors had for the pros and cons and the due diligence of each of the companies that were pitching and presenting to the group, and got to see what eventually would become investments in a lot of those deals, and which ones, had flaws or the holes were poked in by the investors that didn't lead to investments. I got excited about that space. Joined a venture fund right after graduation, where I was in an analyst role, really reviewing a lot of pitches, presentations, and also deciding what got sent on to the investment committee. Both of those, plus another kind of startup I joined that was in more of the analyzing the equity crowdfunding space. All of those kind of led to Prepare for VC, and seeing the process investors go through to vet and validate startups, and what that pipeline looks like, and also how difficult it was for founders that had an idea to even know what to pitch, or get meetings with investors. And that's where we started, was really bridge that gap between what startups were pitching to investors and what investors wanted to see, and how founders kind of navigate that whole process.
That is the constant. Founders, startups needing capital towards their growth. And the success rates of startups not fantastic to say the least. You were working in this space, but both from the creation of Night Owl and success there into the VC world and seeing founders pitch to investors and clear discrepancies in that conversation and what they were, expecting the other side to present at times, just by the sound of it, with your notes and taking, analysis of that, and into the creation of Prepare for VC to kind of bridge that gap of, hey, how do we make founders' presentations to investors more successful based on what the investors want to see, based on how they're going to evaluate, how they're going to, as you said, vet and validate these deals.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, and we've kind of grown along the way. I started Prepare for VC just about 7 years ago, and it started really with me like consulting individually for startup founders on what their pitch decks and what their financial projections and other materials would look like, and kind of being hands-on and actually creating the design and implementing it for them. And still do a good portion of what we do is more of that individual support, but we've built up our investor network over the last 7 years, and also brought on expanded our team the last 3 years or so, and really kind of expanded into our cohort model, which now is kind of more of our flagship program. As we work with a group of startups. Right now we're working with 5 companies over a 12-week program, and it's the educational side around how you can not only be in a better position to fundraise, but what that whole process looks like, what's going to separate the 5 to 10 deals that a venture fund goes into in a given year from the other 1,000 or 5,000 companies that come into their pipeline, and some of the operational, like go-to-market and growth strategies to be in a better position to raise, as well as more of the fundraising, communication, and negotiation tactics to impress anybody that you're pitching to.
And how big is the accelerator? How many companies have gone through these cohorts? I know you guys are working with some of the groups, Boston New Tech, Startup Grind Boston. I know there's some different ways that you amplify to your audience as a whole. Just want to paint more of the picture for listeners on Prepare for VC.
Sure. Yeah, so we're in our 6th cohort of the accelerator, and then individually, usually we have 3 to 5 like consulting clients that we're working with at a time as well. So yeah, right now we have 5 companies in this cohort, and 5 cohorts of other alums that have gone through the program, as well as all of our individual startups. And then yeah, the communities you mentioned are a big portion of it too, as we co-organize or operate several large startup tech communities, and we're hosting everything from webinars to in-person events in the Boston area. We've been expanding our chapters for one of the groups we run called Boston New Technology, and launching Austin and Philadelphia, DC, a few other regions where Providence, we launched a chapter there as well. And the goal is having both local and national like communities where startup founders can come out, they can learn from experts and mentors, and not have to go through the process of making the mistakes on their own. When they can learn from somebody else that's gone there before, they can learn from, we just did actually right before this call, we had a session on financial projections with another expert mentor that came in and led a session for how to build financial projections for our community. And yeah, we also do a lot of startup pitch events where the goal is less of a competition, but really how can you get your startup out there and get feedback and build the right connections, whether it's partners or customers or investors that are coming in and want to be part of everything that you're putting together. So yeah, a lot of our focus is both on that community side as well as the cohort and more individual support that we're working with founders on as well.
I imagine that definitely saves time, streamlines the process, adds to more effectiveness for founders as well too. Heard mentorship referred to as cheat codes. Having someone who's gone down your path be able to show you the way. Whether it's projections or different partnerships, or how to structure messaging, whatever it may be around standard operating procedures, processes that can save time, but really be the difference of success or failure with many startups, as I've seen in my experience.
Absolutely.
And I know you guys have a similar ideology where we say test, optimize, scale. You guys have launch, validate, scale, almost a similar type of mindset in how you guys are taking these companies to market, and how you're refining and growing from there.
Yeah, we've actually our launch program is one of our newer programs. We're in the first cohort with that group now too. So the model there is where a lot of programs really focus on, either kind of the internal operations or just getting ready for demo day pitches. And the investment side, our launch program is more focused on how do you take this and pitch your idea or the start of your business to other team members, developers, partners, like people that can go help build what you're building. So yeah, that's been a lot of our focus is getting ready to launch startups, as well as take more of our accelerator as you're somewhere between the MVP and early revenue phase, and we're helping you get ready for that first formalized round of financing.
And what are your comments on the current ecosystem? So 2023, over the past year and a half, we've heard generalizations from founders along the lines of, hey, no one's investing right now. It's a tough time for startups. A list of different obstacles. Well, what are your perspectives towards that? We're of course running equity crowdfunding campaigns, investor marketing campaigns that are effectively raising capital. So I know those are misconceptions. But there's, definitely an element to that in the VC community. So how do you address those question marks from founders as you're speaking with them here in 2023?
Sure. Yeah, a couple. So the drop off has been mostly, I'd say a lot in the mega rounds. Like you're not seeing as many kind of $50+ million investment rounds going on, and we're not seeing as many of also kind of companies that are going to take a long time, unless it's really like deep tech, companies that are going to take a long time to significant revenue. If it's something that where the IP, the intellectual property itself is kind of the key factor, those are still getting funding. But in general, there's a lot more emphasis on the path to revenue growth and profitability than there was a year or two ago. But overall, if you can show to investors, we're at a spot right now. We've proven out we have customers that want our product or solution, and we have the right and a large enough market that we're going after, and we're going to be okay after this round. If it takes 18 months or if it takes 2 years or 3 years to get to the next round, we're still going to be able to weather whatever financial situation is ahead, because we have good enough margins and a growth strategy for our business. Those are the companies that are really getting a good amount of the funding right now.
Absolutely. And I'm hearing that commitment in that narrative of we're hitting these goals. This is how we're doing it, one way or the other, market conditions or not. This is what we're rolling out. What what have you seen to be some of the most effective tactics towards growth over the past year that are resonating with investors? You're looking at the analysis. Hey, here's what some of the VC groups we're speaking to are looking for the most. What have you seen in terms of growth that listeners could model towards their own second half of the year tactics?
Sure. Yeah, I'd say obviously there's market trends, so it depends if you're in some sectors are always kind of the buzz or hot topics right now. There's obviously a big push for AI technology, but there's kind of a breakdown too of are you using, or are you an AI company and you want to be marketed and presented that way to investors, and kind of go into more of the platform space on that side? Or are you kind of every other company that still falls into the main mission and problems you're solving before, but now maybe there's other solutions you're going to adapt either internally or use AI or other technologies to kind of enhance and speed up the processes you have in place. So we're seeing that that's the current trend, but it doesn't have to mean every company has to switch to be an AI company. It could be like right now we don't really think of you don't give it much thought if a company is a cloud company or not a cloud company. You assume most software we're using today is on the cloud versus one that originally came out. That would be a big thing to be a cloud company. So seeing some trends and that we could eventually have AI kind of built into every type of tech platform, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to position your brand as AI business. Investors are just looking for if we're they're trying to project out basically equity investors, they make their returns from an exit event. So that's your company getting acquired, it's your company going public, or other ways through equity crowdfunding. You can also have more liquidity as well, but what they want to see is not just what can get profit this year, but also more important to them is what is this business going to look like 5, 6, 7 years from now. Mm-hmm. And if you're able to use any sort of up and coming technology and get ahead of your competitors and really create more of that moat around your business, that's what investors are going to be looking for.
You were talking about equity crowdfunding, both in your background and with some of the liquidity comments there. Sure. What have you seen work the best in terms of a Reg CF, a regulation crowdfunding campaign? How do you prepare founders to become issuers on an equity crowdfunding platform and towards success? I think there's 10% of groups that equity crowdfund that really move. There's 50% that produce virtually nothing, and definitely percentages in between there. But why do you like equity crowdfunding? Why do you speak about it as part of your model, and what have you learned from your analysis of it over the years?
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a couple segments it really resonates for. So it's great if for consumer facing applications or products where you can get your customer base or your market involved. And now they're not just, pre-ordering, but they're actually getting a stake in your business, and they're really committed to really sharing the message, sharing it with all of their friends and network, and kind of they'll be with your business for the long term, because even if they have $100, like $100 or $500 in your business, they're still tied to it with a financial commitment. The other piece is kind of the impact space is, we're seeing a lot of medical companies, or, companies that have a mission where maybe a friend or a relative, or, somebody has, like there's a personal connection that's tied to a mission that a startup is solving, and they get a lot of backing from supporters of that cause, and supporters, that still have, they see both the impact and the financial, opportunity. And then there's more of the traditional kind of financial investors that are also going into these, and kind of able to spread it out across a larger portfolio. Maybe they have more crowdfunding deals they'd go into than, if they had to write larger checks into a smaller portfolio of companies. They're able to spread the risk a little bit more through some of these platforms. So yeah, I mean, we've worked with plenty of startups that kind of fit into those categories, and even it actually worked well. One of our last cohorts, we had our in-person demo day at the end of the program, right before. Yeah, it was a company called Coils to Locks, and it was right before their WeFunder campaign was closing. And then they came out to a breakfast event that we had the next day as well. And a lot of the attendees in the audience, made even small investments into their campaign to help them close and push past their goals. And yeah, they were one that fell into that impact plus financial bucket. It was, they basically make curly haired wigs for minority groups, and they find that, that's something that a lot of the medical hair loss companies don't really serve that problem in that market. So, they've created a really strong community, and now they're just on the Jennifer Hudson show, and they're getting a lot of press behind their business. But, they were able to use that campaign to really tie, their supporters to the business, and people that they were meeting at different events, now they're able to get them in without them having to be an angel investor. They don't have to have a minimum threshold to come in and support what they're doing.
I love that story, and I'm definitely a champion for equity crowdfunding. Speak to equity crowdfunding marketing, but I look at the vehicle largely as a launch pad, a marketing play. And as you're stating, I mean, we work with founders that say it's their PPM, and having the private placement memorandum featured as an offering page, directing even larger investors to that funnel, explaining for them that they don't have to involve all of these other groups that they would have to if they were doing this raise strictly offline with VCs. Meanwhile, like you said, they can be doing presentations every week at different, conferences, investor roundtables, road shows, and just point everyone to that location. And it serves as strong social proof. You have 100, 1,000. Some of the groups we work with have thousands of investors on individual rounds. To be able to show that type of traction really goes a long way, both during and after the raise, after the campaign. We market these offerings, getting that value, that awareness that comes from the impressions, the traffic, let alone the investors, and then how they market to their first degree networks after they become a shareholder in the organization. I think the whole mechanisms in its infancy. So anticipate much further growth in years to come. I think we need more investor success stories there. There's already some companies that have gone public, but I think there's a lot more to come. But I am a big fan of it being in your model and think it's a great way to take to market, to be able to validate before leading to more scale, like you're mentioning with groups that have been through your cohorts. So it's great to see that it's part of the curriculum you're putting cohorts through.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think we always have a session on what we call platform-driven fundraising. So sometimes that's equity crowdfunding. Sometimes that's how do you create an application that stands out if you're applying through some of the angel group platforms or other accredited investor platforms too. And yeah, being able to present yourself not just with the standard pitch decks and kind of those live presentations, but also when you're putting materials together that are we're going to stand out to basically somebody that's checking a lot of different applications or checking a lot of different crowdfunding campaigns, and they might only be looking at your page for 30 seconds or less until they something sparks them that they want to really dive in and look at the rest of it. So I think it's important to be able to have that story that stands out right away, and that's something your group helps with as well, as how do you really market this effectively and capture that attention.
Mm-hmm. Taking investors down marketing funnels. Many cases we're brought in just for the traffic, follow-ups that's happening in terms of distribution. In other cases, we're building out the offering page, the pitch. And even if we're not, just to speak to that for a second, you're able to take the key moments that resonate with investors offline and put them all into a digital infrastructure that you can bring prospective audiences to at scale. And not just retail, we'll see accredited investors come through there. I think, as you were mentioning, being found, on these offerings, we've seen franchise partners come out of the marketing, outside of the investment round itself, B2B clients, press, other types of media partnerships, strategic partnerships. We'll see marketing to retail investors for a webinar presentation, and then some social sharing occur afterwards, where the next day there's an accredited investor putting in a much larger amount. Again, just look at it as a good way to get more awareness, engage, and continue to follow up in an educational way, in a way that showcases traction to the point of investment.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really like kind of the way you frame that up.
Yeah. And I've always been impressed by the Boston community. I know we've had conversations around this as well, too. Obviously, Harvard, other schools around there, other schools on the East Coast, the funds, the different VCs in the community. Can you speak more about that, about, what that means for Prepare for VC and why it's had, such a positive effect on groups in your cohort?
Yeah. So, no, I mean, I'm a big advocate for the community, obviously. But yeah, there's actually some, it's one of the cities where, there's some sort of startup event going on pretty much every night of the week. And then, yeah, there's a lot of great kind of resources for that. There's, incredible universities from, the research out of MIT and Harvard and, their business schools, Babson's, and, we're doing a lot of events and at like Suffolk and some of the other universities too. Holt has a pretty big school for the business. They have their big Holt Prize competition every year. So yeah, a lot of the universities are driving some of the innovation. The hospitals too, like Boston has a big med tech and life science scene, and a lot of them are research hospitals that are contributing to the growth, and there's labs, innovation labs, and a lot of great research coming out of the hospital system here too. And then just the startup founders themselves are really open to like connecting with each other. And I think it's always great as a founder to have, you want to have your peer group here that's like at the same stage as you, that, you're going through the same problems and highs at the same time. And, you can kind of bounce ideas off of each other, and then also be a part of different like educational programs or learn from more mentors and advisors that have either had startups in the past or, are experts in different spaces you're learning from as well. So having that mix and balance of, the people in your network, and it's a really good community to go out and like find the right people. And there's kind of one of the things we're trying to help with too in this space and kind of beyond Boston is there's a lot of programs, a lot of great programs out there that fall under the accelerator category, but they don't all focus on the same stages. So helping founders identify what that pathway looks like, and, am I at the right stage for more of an incubator, earlier stage program, or am I at the right stage for another program that's a little bit further on? And how do you navigate, who you should be learning from right now, and which community events you should be going to? And but the great thing is there's a lot of great ones out there. Now we're at the phase where trying to help founders figure out what's actually right for them.
Absolutely. And in terms of figuring out what's right for them, in terms of what takes them to the next levels, wanted to ask a few questions to package some actionable insights to listeners. What are some things founders could test out to find the right mentors, to find the right advisors or partners towards their acceleration, towards their growth? Similar to a question earlier, but kind of honing in on that and finding the right track, finding the right partners for them. What are some easy steps listeners can take to be able to get the right recommendations for their own business?
Yeah, I think there's two great sides there. One is the content side. So a lot of, whether it's an accelerator or an investor you're talking to, or some, a mentor you're looking to learn from, the chances are they have some sort of content out there, whether it's podcasts that are on or YouTube videos they put out, Instagram or TikTok reels, LinkedIn articles, blog posts. Chances are they put some sort of content out there on a regular basis you can connect with and learn from, get to see, what their kind of style of communication is. And if there's somebody, if there's somebody you want to spend time learning from as well. And then the other side is more of those referrals from like that peer group of founders you're building up, and kind of being able to share, who do they learn from? Who are the contacts they turn to when they need advice on, one thing or another, and being able to share resources together and support each other as, as early stage founders.
I like that. And as we mentioned earlier, not all plans work, especially right out of the gate. How do you course correct? How do you optimize? What type of recommendations do you give founders that are going through the course towards optimization?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, so there's two sides to the product market fit. There's the product side, which is, did you build the right application that really solves this need? And that can be really making sure you're listening to the customers, you're not just what they're saying, but how they're actively using or engaging, or what's holding them back from this being the first thing they think about when they have a particular problem that you're solving. The other side is the market side. So maybe you built the perfect product, but you're talking to the wrong customer group, and it actually serves a need for another group. Maybe you haven't even really marketed or talked to yet. So sometimes it's finding the right application for what you've created, and it might be different than what you started out with. Um, and then also kind of keeping up with like the needs of the technology needs right now, or even attitudes towards trying out new technologies. Depending on your market, might be different than they were 5 years ago, and maybe you're in a space where somebody wouldn't have trusted your type of application a few years ago, and now they've done similar marketplaces or applications that make them really eager and excited to try out what you're doing. And it's kind of getting from that early adopter phase to the mainstream market, and kind of that jump can be a big challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs. But it's kind of positioning yourself in a way where you're finding that subgroup you can work with early on that then helps you get to that later group. And there's a lot of customers that don't want to try anything until there's 5-star ratings from hundreds of people, and they've heard from all their friends and family that they should try it, and now they're ready to try it. And then there's other groups that are the first person to get a new product and want to be the one to test and try it out, and want to be on top of like the next wave of innovation. So it's finding that core group you can work with first, but then also making sure your mainstream market is really ready to adopt you when when you're ready for them to come on board.
100%. And really, setting up the feedback loop to get those metrics. I mean, on top of the relationships and here and there, analysis towards it can make all the difference. What about scale? I know it's the final program that we'll call it the graduate program as part of Prepare for VC and your ideology. What about scale? Any tips towards scale, examples of scale? I know that's what we're all playing for.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, that's the phase. Yeah, it's companies coming out of the graduation. It's also companies or founders, we're having back as mentors or speakers at our events too. The whole scale phase, I'd say, is really you've built something and you have a strong system in place where you're always you always want to be testing and optimizing, but you're kind of at the phase where now it's the more people know about it, the more happy customers and users you're going to get. So it's about spreading the word and making sure you don't lose track of what created that initial success, but also getting the word out there. So people that are ready to sign up and just didn't sign up because they don't know you exist and have the opportunity to buy what you're selling.
Very cool. Very cool. And look forward to following more of the Prepare for VC cohort companies as they achieve their next levels of scale. Sounds like an excellent program. And from what I've learned about the details in past conversations, to give the right fundamentals, the right network, the right launch pad to be able to hit those aspects of scale.
Thanks. Yeah, really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share what we're doing, and we'd love to connect with any of your audience that wants to learn more.
Very cool. Very cool. What's the best way for them to do so? And any final thoughts, any final notes you want to leave listeners with?
Sure. So our website is prepareforvc.com with the number 4. And, we also have a community page that's connected to our website called the Ecosystem Hub, and more of an interactive platform where you can ask us questions and post in a feed with other founders and advisors there as well. We have links. We always keep our accelerator applications open, and then currently we're in a cohort that's running through the end of September, and then we have a pretty quick turnaround to our next accelerator cohort from there. So we are always happy to meet new founders and see, and we're pretty honest too about whether our program is going to be a good fit, or whether we have other partners in our network that are going to be a better fit for you to join at this stage. And then, maybe we're a follow-on opportunity, or maybe you're past some of our programs and either we work one-on-one or we recommend another accelerator to work with instead. But we want to have all the founders in your community, part of our ecosystem as well, and be here to support their growth.
I like it. Definitely recommend listeners to take Jason up on that, as well to join the Prepare for VC Ecosystem Hub. And I'm part of it myself. And I see a lot of value come out of the program. Jason, want to thank you for taking the time to hop on the podcast here, share the message, share what you're seeing in the market and with current market conditions at that. And hope to find more ways to collaborate with you guys and watch more success out of the Prepare for VC cohorts in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, really appreciate it. And thanks again.
And want to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next time.